Vicks Sinex nasal spray, cold and flu season. Very windy last night where I lived. Very, very windy. Didn't rain or anything. It was just very disruptive to my life.
It's raining now, I think.
Freaked our cat out. Yeah, cat was all over the house last night, freaking out with the wind. A big, fat cat anyway. Nice to have you back. So the committee comes out every Tuesday night. You know, they wait about a month, and then they come out, and here's who we think deserves to be in the Final Four. And then they always have those two teams, 5 and 6, and we kind of pay attention to that aren't in the Final Four but are about ready to get in. And it may freak some people out, but it's LSU 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Georgia 4, Alabama 5, and Oregon 6. Now, Tua is not playing for Alabama, so I don't think they're going to end up in the championship. But I would tell you this. If Bama beats Auburn in 2 weeks, my guess is they're in. And if LSU beats Georgia, and I think they will, because I do think Bama's going to beat Auburn, and I do think LSU is going to beat Georgia, and the committee is telling you we want 2 SEC teams in. That's what they're telling you. That's why Oregon being 6, not 5, matters. I do think Bama, even without Tua, is going to beat Auburn, and I do think LSU is going to beat Georgia, although I think both games will be highly competitive. And then we'll have Ohio State, Clemson, and 2 SEC teams. I have never been a believer in being loyal to places I grew up. I'm not loyal to the Seahawks. If they didn't have Russell Wilson, I wouldn't like them. I'm not loyal to Oregon just because I used to work there and I think it's an amazing place. 2 things happened in college football. Oregon scheduled tough and lost to Auburn. And if Alabama beats Auburn with their backup quarterback, Alabama's getting in. I really appreciated Oregon scheduling tough, but you got to win those games in September, and Oregon did not beat Auburn. Auburn has a freshman quarterback playing his first game. Auburn was favored, and Auburn won in a neutral field. You got to take care of business, although I do appreciate the effort scheduling Auburn, and you lost close. The second thing is, the SEC is the best conference. Doesn't matter where I grew up or who I covered for a long time. Right now, the SEC has the #1 ranked undefeated team, LSU. They have the #1 rated 1-loss team, Alabama. They have the a 1-loss team is Georgia. They have the #1 ranked 2-loss team, Florida. They have the #1 ranked 3-loss team, Auburn. Okay? So the SEC is the best conference. And the committee's telling you, we want 2 teams from that conference in. That's what they're telling you. And they're telling you, you know, Oregon's good, but they went up against Auburn and lost. And if Alabama beats them, you have a common opponent. And if they can beat them with a backup quarterback, we're putting them in. And I don't have a problem with it. I think the SEC is the best conference. I don't think it's necessarily close. And I do think Oregon scheduled right, but didn't finish the job against Auburn. If they win that game, they're in and nobody complains. So I don't have a problem at all where the committee is. I may have grown up out west. I do think it's bad for business to have a Final Four with Clemson, LSU, and Alabama or Georgia in it. It's incredibly southern. The ratings in college football, Denver West, have been going down for the last 5 or 6 years. You need to have a Western representative. I think you could certainly argue Oregon, from a business standpoint, would be better in than another SEC team. I think having Denver West, San Francisco, L.A., Seattle, Denver, Phoenix engaged matters. It's going to feel very southern again. But if the South's got the best college football, and I don't even think it's disputable right now, I do think Ohio State's the best team. I think they'll be a hot knife through butter against LSU's lousy defense. But I don't have a problem this morning. I would love to say, Oregon, you deserve to be in, but you scheduled tough, outplayed Auburn, and lost to a freshman quarterback in his first game, and you may have the best quarterback in college football. Not just scheduling tough, you gotta win that game. Oregon didn't. That's why they'll probably be on the outside looking in. Enjoy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So kind of overshadowed by the fight in the Steelers-Browns game last week was a little back and forth between Odell and Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
So after Odell was traded to the Browns, Tomlin was asked about facing him twice a year and replied with a fake yawn. It's kind of a little unlike Mike Tomlin. He usually doesn't go there, but he did. So during the game, Odell gave a fake yawn back to the Steelers sideline after he made a big catch, and Odell and Tomlin had a brief interaction during the game. Yeah. And Odell revealed what he told the Steelers coach. He said, I said you disrespected me. Oh, I said, you know who I am. And he said, I know who you are. That's why we're doubling you all game and this and that. He said this all in good fun. They were just talking, and there's no beef. Jarvis Landry also celebrated his touchdown later in the game with a yawn as well. I mean, look, everything that happened in that game kind of glossed over the fact that the Browns did get a pretty significant win over the Steelers.
It was a very
despite
nice
the fact
win.
that, it is Mason Rudolph at quarterback. But again, why are we still talking about last week? I understand the Steelers are coming up again, but you do have the Dolphins this weekend, and
Cleveland's not making the playoffs. By the way, Oakland's 2 games ahead of them.
yes.
And is favored this week. Houston's 2 games ahead of them and is favored this week. Buffalo is 3 games ahead of Cleveland and is favored this week. And in a couple of weeks, Cleveland faces Baltimore and is going to get completely rolled out of their own stadium. So it's over. I mean, these are all great Instagram moments, but it's over for Cleveland. And I don't even think the Odell Beckham deal, which I never loved, everybody else did, I don't think it was a great deal. He's got 1 touchdown, 10 games.
I think that really that's the underlying story of this year for me. Like, obviously, they've been a huge disappointment, but I kind of feel like we're being robbed of Odell's greatness with him being stuck in Cleveland. Like, we thought that this was going to be, at least I thought there would at least be the opportunity for Odell to have some success and some excitement there. It's not that he's playing bad, but we're not getting the Odell that we got in New York.
No, it kind of feels
so for all the complaining about Eli Manning throwing to him, I felt like at least in New York, Odell was relevant.
It's like Anthony Davis in New Orleans. You're being robbed of his greatness. Now you put him with LeBron, and we're watching him every night, and we're like, oh, it's like
you can't believe it.
I root for star receivers to play with good quarterbacks. How great would Odell be with Carson Wentz? How great would he be with Tom Brady or with Russell Wilson? That's why when Josh Gordon goes...
How much better was he with Eli Manning?
I know. So it's, to me, it's... I'll get into it later. I don't think the move was worth it. I think the Giants got 2 defensive starters and probably 3 out of it, and Odell's got 1 touchdown in 10 games.
So Dak Prescott is having the best season of his career and is proving he's worthy of a big contract, and former Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman agrees and thinks it's time for Dak to get his money right now.
I really do not know why he has not yet been paid, and that's not a criticism of anyone's. I don't know if it's just that they're so far apart. I don't think there's any doubt they want to sign him. I don't think he can show anything more than he's already shown. What's being said now is, hey, we love you, we're going to pay you, you're not going anywhere. But until that actually happens, I do think there's not doubt, but I think there's some questions as to, okay, well, how committed are they really to me? If Dak were to be signed, I think it would give him a lift, and I think it would give this team a lift.
Yeah, well, he's going to get paid. Listen, if you... I thought, I watched him in college. I thought he was Tim Tebow with a better arm. And then by middle of year 2, I say, okay, I whiffed on that one. He's good. Now, if you're just being stubborn, if you don't think he's worth $35 million, I think you're being stubborn, because this is the best I've ever seen him play. This is the best. Now, he's one of 3 quarterbacks in the NFL with a workable offensive line, and he has really nice weapons. But at the end of the day is, so what?
I mean, shouldn't he have a good offensive line or a decent offensive line, a workable offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, he has some elements that I like a lot.
Who other than Tom Brady can survive having a mismatched offensive line?
Well, I don't think Tom's flourishing with his offensive line this year.
Right, and they're 9-1, and Andrew Luck is widely considered to be an incredible all-time talent. Couldn't make it happen without an offensive line. Yeah, well, do you feel like Andrew Luck is better than Dak Prescott?
I think Andrew Luck
everyone would say that.
Andrew Luck retired because he was
doesn't
torn
have an
apart.
offensive line.
Right.
The argument for Dak not being a franchise quarterback or not being the future of the Cowboys at this point is kind of silly. Like, he's leading the NFL in passing yards, 3,221. Yeah. He's second in passing yards per attempt, second in passing touchdowns.
And here's the other thing. He's way more accurate than people think. It's funny. In every business in the world, it feels like to me, maybe not. Maybe in music, you're not allowed to improve either. Like in music, when you get to the public spectrum, 22-year-old superstar, we expect you to be great. Generally in the NFL, I think we forget sometimes, these are 22-year-old guys.
Well, I think even in music and in acting and entertainment, you become more cultured and you get more depth and more experience, and that in turn should make you better
think.
or, have more range and whatever. But yes, you forget that how young these guys are, and they should, in theory, it's the same as Tom Brady always talks about. The game slows down for you. Everyone always says that it slows down. So it's not about your physical ability necessarily as much as you understanding the game and seeing more and experiencing more.
Did Gucci Mane get better as he got older?
Yes. Yes, he did.
So
yes.
Gucci Mane.
Yes.
Work harder, nobody cares. He got better.
Nobody cares. Work harder. Oh, my God. Finally, the Colts and Texans meet for the second time this season tomorrow night on Fox, and it has huge implications for the AFC South. According to Fox Bet, Houston is favored to win the division at +110, but Indy isn't far behind at +150. The two teams are tied for first right now, but the Colts hold a tiebreaker after winning their first matchup in Week 7. The Texans are favored by 3.5 tomorrow, but if the Colts can pull off the upset, they'll have a huge advantage in the race for the division because both teams are 6-4. That's Colts and Texans tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern on Fox. A huge Thursday night game again.
Total, really different. Right now, you've got a superstar quarterback that sometimes doesn't feel like he's well coached or supported, whereas you've got a solid quarterback who feels like he has the best young GM in the league and a great offensive line. So that's going to be excellent. We get another good Thursday night matchup.
The Colts are a good example of what building a great all-around team will do for you, just like the Saints. Like you
can lose your franchise quarterback
and still be well into the playoff conversation, in the conversation to win the division. We didn't know what to expect from them this year, so it's a huge game tomorrow night.
There you go, Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd